Want to pass the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner exam fast and stress free? You have just found the perfect video. In this tutorial, we will walk through real exam AWS style questions with clear, beginner friendly explanations designed to help you master cloud concepts, billing, security, and everything AWS wants you to know. This isn't just a quiz, it's your step by step AWS cloud computing course to get certified with confidence. Whether you are total beginner or just brushing up before exam day, this video gives you the knowledge, strategy, and clarity to ask the CLF-CO2 exam. So, if you are ready to build your career in cloud computing, boost your resume, or get started with Amazon Web Services, hit that like button and let's dive right in. The engineering team at an IT company wants to monitor the CPU utilization for its fleet of EC2 instances and send an email to the administrator if the utilization exceeds 80%. As a cloud practitioner, which AWS services would you recommend to build this solution? And the options are A. CloudWatch, B. Lambda, C. SNS, D. SQS, and E. CloudTrail. So, first, let's understand the question. So, just imagine your EC2 instance is working hard and its CPU uses goes above 80%. You want to monitor this and get an alert via email. So, which AWS services can help? The correct answer is CloudWatch and SNS. So, CloudWatch is the main monitoring and observability services in AWS. CloudWatch can track metrics like CPU utilization. You can set a CloudWatch alarm that triggers when CPU uses goes above a threshold, like 80% in this question. Next is SNS. So once CloudWatch detects high CPU usage, it needs to notify someone. This is where SNS comes in. SNS is used to send notification such as emails or text messages. You create an SMS topic, subscribe an email address to it, and then link it to the CloudWatch alarm. When the alarm triggers, SNS sends the alert. So, with CloudWatch and SNS, you get full monitoring plus notification. Now we will look why other options are not suitable. That is Lambda. So while Lambda can respond to events, it's not needed here. You don't need to run custom code, just monitor and alert. Next option we have SQS, that is Simple Queue Service. So SQS is for decoupling microservices using messages queues. It's not meant for sending alerts or monitoring. Then the last option we have CloudTrail. So CloudTrail records API activity and user actions in AWS. It's used for auditing, not for metric monitoring or alerting. So we can summarize as CloudWatch monitors the CPU uses, SNS sends the alert via email or SMS. Together, they give you a clean automated solution. Which AWS service should be used when you want to run container applications but want to avoid the operational overhead of scaling, patching, securing, and managing servers? The options are A. Amazon Elastic Container Service, Amazon ECS, B. AWS Fargate, C. Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, and D. AWS Lambda. So, first we will understand the question. So, imagine you are a developer You have a containerized app, but you don't want to worry about managing servers, patching, scaling, or securing infrastructure. You just want to deploy your containers and go. So, which AWS service handles all that? The correct answer is B. AWS Fargate. So AWS Fargate is a serverless compute engine for containers. You can run containers using Amazon ECS or Amazon EKS, and Fargate takes care of everything behind the scenes: provisioning servers, patching, scaling, and security. It's truly serverless for containers. Now we will look why other options are wrong. That is A. Amazon ECS. So this is partially correct but not complete. So ECS is a container orchestration service, but on its own it doesn't remove the operational overhead. Unless you combine ECS with Fargate, you still need to manage the EC2 instances underneath. Next option we have Amazon EC2. With EC2, you manage the servers yourself, patching, scaling, securing, etc. That's exactly what you wanted to avoid. Then the last option we have AWS Lambda. So Lambda is not for containers by default. It's a serverless service for running code in response to events. While Lambda now support container images, it's not ideal for full container based apps that require orchestration. So friends, key takeaway for this question is that use Fargate when you want to run containers without managing servers. Just focus on your app and let AWS do the best. Which of the following use cases is not supported by Amazon Recognition? The options are A. Label objects in a photo. B. Quickly resize photos to create thumbnails. C. Identify person in a photo. And D. Detect text in a photo. So first we will understand what is Amazon Recognition. So it is an AI powered image and video analysis service. It uses machine learning to understand visual content like detecting faces, objects, and text in image. Now let's go through each option. The first one is label objects in a photo. Yes, recognition can scan an image and tell you what object it sees, like car, tree, person, or animal. This is called label detection. The next option we have identify person in a photo. So it is also supported, and it can match faces and even perform facial recognition. Next we have detect text in a photo. So this is also supported. It can read printed text in photos, helpful for signs, license plates, and scanned documents. Then the last option, quickly resize photos to create thumbnails. So this is not supported, as this has nothing to do with the computer vision or image recognition. Resizing or formatting images is more of an image processing task, not AI based recognition. So the correct answer is B. So the key takeaway from this question is Amazon recognition can do detect objects, identify faces, read text, but it does not resize image or thumbnails. So friends, if you are learning new stuff with these detailed explanations, go ahead and hit subscribe. We are turning practice questions into actual knowledge, not just cramming answers. What are the different gateway types supported by AWS Storage Gateway Service? The options are A. Object Gateway, File Gateway, and Block Gateway. B. Tape Gateway, File Gateway, and Block Gateway. C. Tape Gateway, object gateway and volume gateway, the tape gateway, file gateway, and volume gateway. So first we will look what AWS Storage Gateway is really about. AWS Storage Gateway is a hybrid cloud storage service that connects your on-premises environment to AWS cloud storage. It provides three main types of gateways to suit different storage needs. The first one is tape gateway. So this allow you to back up your on-premises data using your existing backup applications, but the backups are stored in Amazon S3 and Glacier. It's a great way to move from traditional tape based backups to the cloud. Then, file gateway. This one lets you store and access files as object in Amazon S3 using standard file protocols like NFS or SMB. It's perfect for applications that need file storage but you want the data stored securely in S3. Then we have volume gateway. So you can either use cached volumes where data is stored in S3 and frequently used data is cached locally, or stored volumes where data is stored locally and asynchronously backed up to S3. So the correct answer is D. So now we will look why others options are not correct. So for the option A, it mentions object gateway. There's no such gateway tape. Then B and C mix terms like object gateway or block gateway. These aren't the correct AWS storage gateway types. So key takeaway for this question is that for tape is backup, for file NFS or SMB to S3, for volume block storage. Due to regulatory and compliance reasons, an organization has deployed its entire IT infrastructure on its on premises data center. How would you classify this deployment model? The options are A. Cloud, B. Hybrid, C. Mixed, and D. Private. So first we will try to understand the question here. So imagine a company is not using AWS or any public cloud services at all. Instead, they have decided to run everything servers, storage, networking inside their own data center. And what could be the reason? That is regulatory and compliance requirements may be related to data privacy, financial regulation, or government policies. So, what kind of cloud deployment model is this? Now, let's go through each option. The first one is cloud. So this refers to using services hosted in the cloud like AWS, Azure or GCP. If they were using cloud, they wouldn't be running everything on premises. So this is not the correct answer. Then hybrid. So hybrid cloud means you are using a mix of on premises and cloud infrastructure. This company is fully on prem, so this doesn't apply. Then we have C, mixed. So there's no official cloud deployment model called mixed in AWS terminology. Then the last option we have private. So a private cloud refers to cloud like infrastructure dedicated to a single organization, often hosted on premises. In this case, even though they are not using a public cloud, the setup still qualifies as private cloud because it's managed internally and isolated from others. Hence, the correct answer is D. Now, the key concept for this question is that when an organization runs everything internally due to control, security, or compliance, it's a private cloud setup. This is a common scenario in industries like banking, healthcare, and government. So if this breakdown helped you learn something new, hit that subscribe button now. We are not just giving you answers, we are giving you concept clarity that helps you pass with confidence. A photo sharing web applications wants to store thumbnails of user uploaded images on Amazon S3. The thumbnails are rarely used but need to be immediately accessible from the web application. The thumbnails can be regenerated easily if they are lost. Which is the most cost effective way to store these thumbnails on S3? The options are: A. Use S3 one zone infrequent access to store the thumbnails. B. Use S3 standard to store the thumbnails. C. Use S3 Glacier to store the thumbnails. And D. Use S3 standard infrequent access to store the thumbnails. So the correct answer is A. So let's break it down based on the key parts of this question. Thumbnails are rarely accessed, so we don't need to pay for frequent access storing like S3 standard. They must be immediately accessible. That eliminates Glacier, which is designed for archival storage and takes minutes to hours to retrieve data. They can be regenerated easily if lost. This means we don't need high durability across multiple availability zones. Now let's go through the option, that is A, S3 one zone infrequent access. So this is the best choice as low cost storage for data that is infrequently accessed, stored in a single availability zone. Then data is immediately available, greater for non-critical, easily recreatable data like thumbnails. And the last, most cost effective in this scenario. Then the option B, it is too expensive, meant for frequently accessed data, overkill and higher cost for data that are rarely used. Then the option C is S3 Glacier. So this is not suitable as it is meant for archive storage. Retrieval takes time, not immediately accessible, which is requirement in this question. Then the last option, S3 standard infrequent access. It is close but not optimal. It still replicates across multiple AZs, making it more durable. But if the data can be easily recreated, that extra durability isn't necessary. And one zone infrequent access is cheaper and fits better here. So the key concept is use S3 one zone infrequent access when data is infrequently accessed, immediately needed when accessed, non-critical and can be regenerated easily. It saves cost without compromising availability for this kind of workload. So this is the kind of real world questions you must understand to pass the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam. If you are learning something new, do hit subscribe because we break down every questions with logic, not just answer. Which AWS service publishes up to the minute information on the general status and availability of all AWS services in all regions of AWS Cloud? The options are A. AWS Personal Health Dashboard, B. Amazon CloudWatch, C. AWS Service Health Dashboard, and D. AWS Cloud Formation. So the correct answer is C. So the AWS Service Health Dashboard provides a public view of the current status of AWS services across all regions. It shows real-time issues like outage or scheduled maintenance events. Anyone can access it at status.aws.amazon.com. No AWS account needed. It's the go-to tool to check if a problem is affecting multiple users. Now we will look why other options are incorrect. That is option A. AWS Personal Health Dashboard. So only shows issues that impact your AWS account specifically. It provides personalized alerts and remediation guidance, but it does not show overall AWS status across all regions. Next option we have Amazon CloudWatch. So it is used for monitoring resources like EC2, RDS, Lambda, etc. It shows metrics, logs, and alarms, but only for your own AWS account and resources. It does not show global AWS service status. Then the last option, that is AWS Cloud Formation. So this service is used for automating infrastructure deployments using templates. It's unrelated to service health or regional status. Now key concept for this question. So for the service, AWS Service Health Dashboard, the purpose is that public status of AWS services across all regions. Then AWS Personal Health Dashboard is personalized alerts for your AWS accounts only. Amazon CloudWatch, it's resource monitoring like metrics, logs, alarms, and AWS Cloud Formation, it is infrastructure as code deployment tool. Which AWS service can be used to store, manage, and deploy Docker container images? The options are A. Amazon EC2, B. Amazon Elastic Container Service, C. Amazon Lambda, and D. Amazon Elastic Container Registry. So the correct answer is D. So Amazon Elastic Container Registry is a fully managed container image registry. It allows you to store your Docker container images, manage access with IAM, deploy directly from the registry to services like ECS, EKS, or even EC2. It integrates with CI/CD pipelines and Docker CLI for easy push and pull. Now we will look why other options are not correct as Amazon EC2. So EC2 is a virtual machine service. You can run Docker containers on EC2, but it doesn't store container images. Think of EC2 as a compute, not a registry. Next option we have Amazon ECS. So ECS is used to run and orchestrate containers, not to store them. ECS actually uses ECR to fetch the images. The last option we have AWS Lambda. So while Lambda now supports container images for deployment, it does not store them. You build and store images in ECR and then deploy them in Lambda. So the tip for this question is you can think of Amazon ECR as the Docker hub of AWS. It's where your Docker images live securely in your AWS account. Which service gives a personalized view of the status of the AWS services that are part of your cloud architecture so that you can quickly access the impact on your business when AWS services are experiencing issues. The options are A. Amazon CloudWatch, B. AWS Inspector, C. AWS Personal Health Dashboard, and D. AWS Service Health Dashboard. So first let's try to understand the question. It wants to know which AWS services provides a customized dashboard that shows you the health status of AWS services specifically related to your own environment, meaning it tells you if AWS services that you use are having issues and how that could affect your application or businesses. Now let's look at the option and what they mean. The first one is Amazon CloudWatch. So this service monitor your AWS resources and application like CPU, uses, memory or custom logs. It tells you about performance or errors in your own resources but does not tell you the health status of AWS services themselves. So this is not the correct one. Next option AWS Inspector. So this is a security assessment tool that scans your application and resources for vulnerabilities and compliance issues. It doesn't monitor AWS service health or status. Then we have C, AWS Personal Health Dashboard. So this service gives you personalized alerts and status updates about AWS services that directly impact your AWS environment. So if an AWS service your company depends on is experiencing issues, it notifies you and shows detailed info to help you respond. Then the last option, AWS Service Health Dashboard. This shows the public health status of AWS services across all regions but is not personalized to your specific AWS resources account. So after understanding all four of the terms, so the correct answer should be C because the question asks for a personalized view tailored to your cloud environment, and that's exactly what AWS Personal Health Dashboard provides. It's like your own status monitor for AWS services you rely on. A customer has created a VPC and a subnet within AWS Cloud. Which of the following statements is correct? The options are A. A VPC spans all over the availability zones in the region, whereas a subnet spans only one availability zone in the region. B. A subnet spans all of the availability zones in the region, whereas a VPC spans only one availability zone in the region. C. Both the VPC and the subnet span all of the availability zones in the region. And the D. Both the VPC and the subnet span only one availability zone in the region. So, what is this question asking about? So, it wants you to understand the scope and coverage of two key network components in AWS, that is, Virtual Private Cloud and Subnet, specifically how these relate to availability zones within an AWS region. So, first, let's understand the terms, that is VPC. So, this is your private network in AWS. It is a logically isolated section of the AWS cloud where you can launch AWS resources in a virtual network. Then subnet, a smaller network segment inside the VPC. It's a range of IP addresses in your VPC where you place your resources like EC2 instances. Then we have availability zone. These are isolated data centers within an AWS region. Each AZ is physically separated to provide high availability and fault tolerance. Now let's analyze the options one by one. That is option A. So this means the VPC covers the entire region, that is all AZs, but each subnet belongs to exactly one AZ. This is correct because you design subnets within a specific AZs for isolation and availability. Then we have option B. So this is incorrect because subnets are always tied to a single AZ while VPCs span the entire region. Then the option C, this is also incorrect because subnets do not span multiple AZs, they are AZs specific. And the last option is also incorrect because a VPC covers the whole region, not just one AZ. So why A is the correct? Because a VPC is designed to cover the entire regions and can include multiple subnets, each assigned to a specific availability zone. This design helps you architect highly available and fault tolerant application by distributing resources across AZs.